I can't tell you how many people message me on a daily basis. Hundreds, if not thousands of people message me on a daily basis. How do I get started in prepping? That's the number one question. And today we're going to dive into it. Hey, welcome to the One Row. My name is David. And today we're talking about the basics. We're getting back to the basics. Now, I did in the intro said thousands. That might be an exaggeration. Hundreds, it's probably an exaggeration too. There's been a few though, maybe like one or two. So we're going to start with that, and we're going to talk about if you have a desire to get into preparedness, where do you start? Like, what is when it comes to preparedness? I mean, there's so many different topics to talk about. You've got, power concerns, food concerns, water concerns, shelter concerns, camping gear, firearms, safety, current events. I mean, a lot of things play into preparedness. And today we're going to kind of just talk about the basics. But before we dive into it, I got to give a huge shout out to our Patreon community. Thank you all so much for the continued support. And today, the video is sponsored by you. If you end up enjoying this, please smash that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Now, the first thing you want to do and consider when you get into preparedness is the number one, what are the likeliest scenarios that would affect my day-to-day life? And that can be loss of a job, a major financial crisis due to a medical emergency, or a car accident, or act of God, something like that. It can range from something like that all the way to tornadoes, earthquakes, firestorms, and nuclear war. And I mean, there's a gamut of things, right? But you have to, when people start, you can't prepare for everything. But what you can do is do some basic things to start preparing for the most likely scenarios. Now, it's not sexy or exciting, but the number one thing you can do to prepare is get your financial house in order. Finances, whether we like it or not, are incredibly important when it comes to preparedness. And the things that are going to most likely impact you on a day-to-day basis are things related to not having enough money. Like if you lose your job tomorrow, God forbid it doesn't happen, but if you lost your job tomorrow, how are you going to get by? Like the very base, how are you going to provide for your family until you can get another job? And so that's like, obviously, it's not sexy or exciting. There's no sweet, cool gear to buy or anything like that. But when it comes down to it, that is like the basics. Beyond that, you can do some general things to prepare for most situations by just storing some basic extra food, some extra water, some extra supplies, and that will get you through the basics of most situations. Other things that you also want to consider is not only the likelihood of certain scenarios and how they might impact you, but as part of that, what are your household needs? Do you have special medications? Are you diabetic? Do you take diabetic medication? Do you take heart medication? Are there things that you take on a daily basis that are necessary for you to stay healthy and stay upright? So when I talk about a basic kit, the basic things, I'm talking about a basic 72-hour kit. And what is a 72-hour kit? A 72-hour kit should have everything that you need to have to get by for 72 hours. Where food, shelter, water, personal hygiene products, clothing, shoes, those types of things. We're talking the basics to survive for 72 hours. As a general rule of thumb, when it comes to water storage, you need at minimum 1 gallon of water per person per day. So if you are by yourself for 72 hours, 3 days, you need minimum 3 gallons of water. And that doesn't include washing or, brushing your teeth and spitting out. This is really just for consuming into your body about 1 gallon of water. I know you're like, that's a lot of water to drink. The reality is it goes very, very quickly. So I prefer to go by the rule of thumb of 2 gallons of water per person per day. That gives you 1 gallon to drink and 1 gallon for washing, cleaning, whatever other purposes you need. Next, you need food. Well, first of all, for water, what are some good ways to store water? One is basic water bottles. The downside of basic water bottles, and there could be a whole video on water because it's a very interesting topic when it comes to long-term storage of water. But you can just do basic like 1 liter water bottles you buy at Costco, or 750 ml bottles like Deer Park or Dasani or whatever. You can do those. Or what I recommend, the problem with those is the plastic over the course of it's honestly pretty quickly, about 9 months to a year, will become very brittle, crack, and your water will leak everywhere. So what I recommend doing for water is to go to Walmart, and they have the aquatainers. They're these big blue water cubes. They hold 7 gallons of water. They're about $18 or so per cube, and fairly inexpensive. And one of those, again, 7 gallons for one person would be 7 days in theory. But if you go by my rule of thumb of 2 gallons of water per person per day, which is more realistic, now you're talking for 7 gallons, that would be 3.5 days. And that's about spot on. So if you had an aquatainer for every person in your family, in your home, as part of your 72-hour kit and preparedness, you would, in theory, have enough water for, if you had 4 people, have 4 aquatainers, and that should give you about just over 3 days worth of water in case of emergency. Nice thing about the aquatainer things is the plastic is made for human consumption. It doesn't break down over time. I have aquatainers that I have had for 20 years and they still are fine. They still have their shape. They still hold water just fine. There's been no degradation in quality. They're fantastic products. Highly recommend them. The only problem with the aquatainer being 7 gallons is 7 gallons of water is heavy. It's like just over 50 pounds. So if you can't carry 50 pounds, having a water jug that's over 50 pounds that you have to then move from, say, your basement upstairs in an emergency can be very tricky. So if you can't carry that, they do have smaller water containers that are made for water storage. They're just a little more expensive for the amount of water they hold. Now, for basic food storage, it can be as simple as cans of food, cans of chili, green beans. I recommend something that has protein in it if you're going with canned goods. So like I said, chili is probably one of my preferred go-tos if you're using the canned good method in a 72-hour kit. The problem with 72-hour kits when you do canned goods is you end up having to store a lot of water weight. So if you have to move that 72-hour kit and you're taking 3 days worth of food that's liquefied basically, then you're going to end up having to carry a lot of water weight. Better approach, if you can afford it, it's more expensive though, is to go with like Mountain House meals, like the camping meals. Those can be pretty solid and a pretty good alternative. What I recommend, what we do is we have basically 3 meals worth of Mountain Houses per person per day in our kits. And then we have protein bars on top of that, as well as those like the dry ration bars that go on ships, those like cardboard tasting things. Everybody gets 1 extra of those, they're like lemon flavored things. They're not very good, but they're good in emergency, and they give you something extra to just gnaw on, and they're really hard to chew, so it is really gnawing on it. But, it gives you something. So between the Mountain House meals, plus some extra protein bars and candies, chocolates, stuff like that, just for extra calories and comfort, and particularly with kids, it helps calm them down, stuff like that. I mean, obviously, you can do a lot with just rice and beans. Particularly rice, I think, is super good just because rice, all you have to do is add water, heat it up, and add some flavoring, maybe some salt, and you've actually got basically a soup. And rice is really easy. It's pretty light, and it's really easy. It's pretty calorie dense. So I'm a big fan of that. If you want to go the cheaper route, you can do that as well. So there's different ways of doing it. Obviously, you can meat with rice, combine them in a pot as you're hiking or evacuating, or in the hotel room somewhere, or in a FEMA camp or whatever, wherever you end up. So after food and water, water's the most important. Food's the second most important. Third is a first aid kit, a good first aid kit. Yes, you want to have stuff for just little nicks, cuts, Band-Aids, Neosporin, but you also want more severe stuff. You want potentially something with like a splint. You need bandages, like support bandages if you like twist ankles if you're on the move, and then all the way up into like Israeli dressings and cat tourniquets, and massive like blood stop type things for bullet wounds and whatever. You can go overboard. I don't actually think there's an overboard on first aid, realistically. Like, I've not found the overboard, but it can get expensive, I guess is a better way of saying it. But for your first aid kit, if you just get a basic first aid kit, add some Quick Clot, add a splint, like one of those metal roll splints that you can form around something, and then a good couple, maybe 2 or 3 tourniquets, and you'll be in a pretty good spot for a basic first aid kit. Again, that can be its entire own video. Someday we'll get into it. Lastly, in your 72-hour kit, you want basic supplies: flashlights, headlamps, an AM/FM radio, potentially a portable battery charger, and a way to recharge that if possible, like a little solar panel that you can feed into a portable battery that you can then charge your phone and some of your other electronics off of. AAA batteries, AA batteries to power some of your basic equipment. I recommend headlamps for everyone, and then some flashlights to go around too, particularly if you're having to be on the move. Somebody in the front, somebody in the back with the more powerful flashlights, having them obviously turned off. Try to have a little bit of OPSEC, but and for headlamps, I prefer ones with actually a red light. So you can, instead of having white light, you're actually red light. It helps to keep your night vision, and it makes you less visible to people farther away from you, or people that might observe you. A little more operational security. Best thing actually is to learn to hike in the dark, but that's a different skill set. It's something that's a little harder for kids and wives and partners to get comfortable doing. On top of those, you might want some basic tools: Leatherman, maybe a saw, camping axe, depending on if you have to get on the move, or chop some firewood so you have some kind of be able to process some wood. Blankets, sleeping bags. Again, the sky's the limit, so you can start basic, start small. The way I like to think of it is there's two ways a 72-hour kit is useful, in my opinion. One is if you're on foot, so you need your 72-hour kit in backpack form that you can actually carry as you move. Now, when I say that you may start out in your car, right, driving away from the emergency, trying to find a safe place to go, but still you want it in backpack form because you might end up on your feet. So yes, you can store your 72-hour kit in a big plastic tote, and that's a great place to start. But in my opinion, it's better to try to use a backpack. Get everybody in your group a little backpack. You can get cheap backpacks at Walmart or on Amazon that are fairly inexpensive, $30, which will serve the purpose, and they'll last for 72 hours. They won't last through the end of the world, but they'll last for 72 hours. Inside those packs, not only are they going to have the food, water, and supplies, right? It's basic supplies, but then also have clothing, extra socks, extra shoes, potentially a sleeping bag, or at least a thick blanket, something to help stay warm at night. And hopefully y'all can, share a tent, maybe, parcel it out amongst everybody to help spread the load. But, and that will get you a 72-hour kit that's fairly basic, but it will help you be comfortable in an emergency situation, in which case you might have to leave your home. Because one of the things you have to think about is the disaster may be localized to a very small area, right? Like we had a really bad snowstorm one time here in town, and when we were at the old house, and we lost power, and that house had well water, and the well was not on the backup generator. And so and it was really stupid, but how it was set up was just dumb. But basically, without the well being on water, it was almost unlivable because you couldn't flush toilets, anything else. So we just drove like 30 miles up, up the interstate, but across the county to another county, and we just checked into a hotel. So that was our evacuation plan, was just to go to a hotel in Manassas. So yeah, and that's the name of the town. For those of you that aren't familiar with Northern Virginia, there's a town called Manassas. Yeah, that's a thing. Anyway. But sometimes the disaster is much more regional, right? Like what happened down in North Carolina, where you can't just go, 20, 30 miles away and be in a totally fine place. Like the whole area was just a disaster zone. Now, we spent a lot of time on 72-hour kits because they are very important, and it's a great place to start. After that, which requires almost no cost, is creating a communication plan and an evacuation plan. So two different plans. Communication plan basically is, how are you going to get you and all of your people, kids, siblings, parents, whatever is in your people group, and getting them all to one place to then go somewhere. So, and it can be a very basic plan, like, hey, everybody, if there's a big disaster of some kind, meet me in my house, and then we're going somewhere together, right? And then you could, and that's the plan. Obviously, that's very basic. You want to have it, I prefer to actually print it out with instructions. So in a disaster, with on one side there's instructions, on the other side is a map with like arrows for people to go where they should go. Make it really easy in a panic situation, so they don't even have to think about it. They literally just do what the card says. It's just a 8.5 by 11 laminated. Love it. But yeah, something like that. Get a plan in place. Make sure everybody in your group knows what to do. And that's your communication plan, right? And then you have an evacuation plan, which is in case of hurricane, this is the plan, right? Everybody meet here. We're going to then go from here into West Virginia. I'm in Virginia, near the coast, so maybe I'm going to head over to West Virginia and get away from the worst of the storm. Figure out the things that are most likely to affect you, and then create plans for that. They don't have to be crazy in depth. They don't have to be crazy complicated, but just enough detail so that in a panic situation, you and your group are not having to think about what to do. Because the whole point of planning ahead, and maybe we should have touched on this from the very beginning, is so that in a crisis scenario, a disaster of some kind, whatever that might be, you have what you need to go. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to then go pack a bag. Oh my gosh, we're leaving for 3 days. What do I need to do? Oh, go grab a pillowcase and we'll throw clothes into it. And then I've got shoes on, and then we need our medication, and throw it in a bag and go. Like, you don't want to do that. You want to have it planned out, thought through, so that when the crisis comes, you're ready and you can just follow the plan. Next is you learn basic skills. YouTube is the most amazing place, the most amazing thing that I've ever seen in my life. And I say that truthfully. Having a channel has been a great experience, but I've learned so much. There's so many people out there willing to teach you for free. You just got to go find their videos. Now, not everybody on YouTube is an expert, so take it with a grain of salt. Make sure you know where your source of information is coming from, but you can learn a lot about first aid, a lot about CPR, a lot about how to purify water. There's resources out there for you to learn some skills, learn basic plumbing, basic electricity, learn how to actually run your home. Like, do you know how to shut the water off? Do you know how to shut the gas off? Because goodness, if you're on natural gas and there's an earthquake, you want to go and actually, close the natural gas off to the inside of your house, so that you lower the risk of your house exploding, right? It's a good thing to know. And lastly, take the opportunity while you can to create paper documentation of all your important documents. We've become so reliant on technology. Print off your print off copies of your driver's license, of your passport, of your immunization cards, or whatever else. Your medical histories, like get paper copies of things, birth certificates, social security cards, etc., so that if you have to flee, right, and you don't have access, your electronics die, you don't have access to them, and if it's a greater emergency, you may not have access to the cloud, etc., etc. So get paper copies, get them available, get them all packed up into this special little envelope for your 72-hour kit so you can take it when you go, because you do want to have that. 5 things that you can do right now to start getting into preparedness, to start your preparedness journey, right? Everything, we're all on a journey together, and this is 5 things that you can do to start that preparation. If you ended up enjoying this video, please smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't. We'll see you next time.